What if everything you thought you knew about Stoicism was designed for a world that no longer exists? Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations by candlelight, ink on parchment, in a world where a message took months to arrive and silence was the default state of existence. But you woke up this morning to 43 notifications, an algorithm that knows you better than you know yourself, and a machine that can write poetry, solve equations, and predict your next move before you've even thought it. The ancient Stoics built their philosophy on controlling what they could and accepting what they couldn't. But what happens when the line between those two dissolves? What happens when artificial intelligence doesn't just change the tools you use, but rewrites the very nature of control, reason, and human meaning? Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Yet today, it's not just time we're losing. It's attention, it's agency. It's the quiet space between stimulus and response that Viktor Frankl called freedom itself. And here's the truth that's keeping philosophers, technologists, and millions of silent seekers awake at night. AI isn't just another tool. It's a mirror. It reflects back every assumption we've ever made about what makes us human, what makes us free, and whether ancient wisdom can survive in a world where machines think faster than we do. So before you dismiss this as another video about productivity hacks or morning routines, ask yourself this. When an AI can optimize your decisions better than you can, when it can predict your emotional patterns and offer solutions before you've even named the problem, what does self-mastery even mean anymore? The Stoics believed in living according to nature, according to logos, according to reason. But what happens when reason itself becomes outsourced? This isn't a video about rejecting technology or retreating into some romanticized past. This is about something far more urgent and far more personal. It's about whether the philosophy that helped emperors face death, slaves find freedom, and exiles discover peace can be reborn in an age where the greatest threat isn't war or poverty, it's distraction, dependence, and the slow erosion of the one thing the Stoics held sacred: the sovereignty of your own mind. Because here's what they're not telling you in the LinkedIn posts and the TED Talks and the breathless articles about AI. This technology isn't just changing how we work, it's changing how we think, how we choose, how we define ourselves. And if we're not careful, if we don't adapt the ancient wisdom to meet this unprecedented moment, we risk becoming exactly what the Stoics feared most: externalized, reactive, enslaved to forces outside our control. But there's another possibility, a path that neither rejects AI nor surrenders to it, a way to take the core principles that helped Epictetus survive slavery and Marcus Aurelius survive power and forge them into something new, something that doesn't just survive the age of AI, but uses it to become more human, not less. The question isn't whether Stoicism still works. The question is whether you're ready to see it transformed, deepened, and made brutally relevant for a world the ancients could never have imagined, but somehow, impossibly, already understood. Because what's coming in the next few minutes isn't philosophy as usual. It's a redefinition, a resurrection. And by the end, you'll see why the most dangerous thing you can do right now isn't to embrace AI or reject it. It's to face it without the one thing that's always separated wisdom from mere knowledge, a philosophy that makes you free. Let's start with the most foundational concept in all of Stoic philosophy, the one idea that every modern Stoic account, every self-help book, every motivational speaker returns to like a mantra: the dichotomy of control. Epictetus, born a slave in the Roman Empire, discovered a truth so powerful it gave him more freedom in chains than most people ever find in liberty. He said, "Some things are in our control and others not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, property, reputation, command, and, in one word, whatever are not our own actions." For 2,000 years, this distinction has been the bedrock of Stoic practice. You draw a circle around what you can control, your thoughts, your responses, your character, and you let everything else go. Your health might fail, your reputation might crumble, the empire might burn, but if you master your inner citadel, you remain free. It's elegant, it's powerful, and in the age of AI, it's collapsing. Not because it's wrong, but because the ground beneath it is shifting in ways Epictetus could never have anticipated. Think about your morning. You open your phone. An algorithm has already curated your newsfeed based on patterns in your behavior you've never consciously noticed. It knows you're more likely to engage with outrage at 7 a.m. It knows you click on videos about self-improvement when you're feeling inadequate, which your usage patterns suggest happens every Sunday evening. A recommendation engine decides what you watch. An autocomplete function shapes what you write. A predictive text model anticipates your next word before you've fully formed the thought. Now answer this honestly. In that moment, are your thoughts your own actions, or are they being subtly, invisibly shaped by forces outside your awareness? The Stoics said, your opinions are in your control. But what happens when your opinions are formed inside an attention economy designed by behavioral psychologists and optimized by machine learning to keep you scrolling, clicking, reacting? What happens when the stimulus-response loop that Stoicism teaches you to interrupt is being accelerated to microseconds by systems that know your psychological vulnerabilities better than you do? This is the first truth we must face. AI hasn't just added another external factor to the not in our control category. It's blurred the line itself. It's created a gray zone where influence and autonomy are so entangled that the old map no longer matches the territory. And this isn't theoretical. Researchers at Stanford and MIT have demonstrated that AI systems can predict human choices with unsettling accuracy, sometimes before the person themselves is consciously aware of their decision. They've shown that language models can detect emotional states from text patterns, that recommendation algorithms can shape political beliefs, that personalized interfaces can nudge behavior in predetermined directions. The philosopher Nick Bostrom calls this the vulnerable world hypothesis, the idea that as technology advances, it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain the conditions necessary for human flourishing. But here's where it gets personal, where it becomes your story. You felt this, haven't you? That strange sense that you're not quite piloting your own attention anymore? That you opened your phone to check one thing and somehow 30 minutes disappeared into a scroll you can't quite remember? That you started with a question and ended with someone else's answer, algorithmically selected, before you'd even finished forming your own thought? Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But what happens when the outside events include systems specifically designed to have power over your mind? When the outside has learned to mimic the inside so well that you can't tell where one ends and the other begins? This is not a call to panic. It's an invitation to evolve. Because the Stoics weren't dogmatists, they were pragmatists. They adapted. When Zeno of Citium first founded the Stoic school around 300 BCE, he synthesized ideas from Cynicism, Platonism, and Hegelianism to address the anxieties of the Hellenistic age, a time when the old city-state structures were collapsing and people felt unmoored in vast empires beyond their control. The Stoics have always been philosophers of crisis, of transition, of standing firm when the ground shifts. So here's the first redefinition. The dichotomy of control must become the spectrum of influence. It's no longer about drawing a hard line between what's yours and what's not. It's about recognizing degrees of agency, acknowledging invisible influences, and consciously choosing where to invest your attention and energy in a world where even your attention is being competed for by intelligences that never sleep, never tire, and learn from every interaction. You still have sovereignty,
but you must fight for it differently now, not by retreating into the inner citadel and ignoring the siege outside, but by understanding exactly how the siege works, what weapons it uses, and how to fortify yourself against attacks you can't see coming. The question Epictetus asked, "Is this in my control?" must be upgraded. Now we ask, what degree of influence do I have here? What invisible forces are shaping this moment? And how do I remain the author of my response even when I'm not the author of the stimulus? This is not a call to panic. It's an invitation to evolve. Because the Stoics weren't dogmatists, they were pragmatists. They adapted. When Zeno of Citium first founded the Stoic school around 300 BCE, he synthesized ideas from Cynicism, Platonism, and Hegelianism to address the anxieties of the Hellenistic age, a time when the old city-state structures were collapsing and people felt unmoored in vast empires beyond their control. The Stoics have always been philosophers of crisis, of transition, of standing firm when the ground shifts. So here's the first redefinition. The dichotomy of control must become the spectrum of influence. It's no longer about drawing a hard line between what's yours and what's not. It's about recognizing degrees of agency, acknowledging invisible influences, and consciously choosing where to invest your attention and energy in a world where even your attention is being competed for by intelligences that never sleep, never tire, and learn from every interaction. You still have sovereignty, but you must fight for it differently now, not by retreating into the inner citadel and ignoring the siege outside, but by understanding exactly how the siege works, what weapons it uses, and how to fortify yourself against attacks you can't see coming. The question Epictetus asked, "Is this in my control?" must be upgraded. Now we ask, what degree of influence do I have here? What invisible forces are shaping this moment? And how do I remain the author of my response even when I'm not the author of the stimulus?
Seneca spent years in exile, stripped of his status, his library, his influence, everything except his mind. And in that deprivation, he wrote some of the most penetrating letters on wisdom ever composed. In one, he tells his friend Lucilius, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." He was talking about material wealth, but if he could see you now, sitting with the entire accumulated knowledge of human civilization accessible in 3 seconds through a device in your pocket, he would say the same thing about information. You are drowning in data and starving for wisdom. This is the second great paradox of the AI age, and it's destroying people in ways they don't even recognize. The ancient Stoics operated under conditions of scarcity, scarce books, scarce teachers, scarce access to knowledge. Epictetus had to memorize his lessons because he couldn't afford to write them down. Marcus Aurelius carried his philosophy in his head because transporting scrolls across military campaigns was impractical. They read deeply because they read rarely. They contemplated thoroughly because every idea was precious. But you've read 17 articles this week and retained nothing. You've saved 43 videos to watch later that you'll never watch. You've bookmarked 100 quotes about wisdom while living with none of it. And here's the crushing irony. AI is making this exponentially worse while pretending to solve it. You can now ask an artificial intelligence to summarize any book, explain any philosophy, solve any problem. You can generate a personalized study plan, a customized meditation practice, a perfectly optimized morning routine, all without reading a single primary source, without sitting with a single difficult truth long enough for it to change you. The promise is efficiency. The reality is spiritual atrophy. There's a concept in neuroscience called cognitive offloading, the phenomenon where we stop remembering things because we know we can look them up. Your brain is optimizing for access over retention, for retrieval over integration. And with AI, this is accelerating to a crisis point. Why memorize anything when you can ask ChatGPT? Why struggle with a concept when an AI tutor can break it down instantly? Why sit with discomfort, confusion, the fertile darkness of not knowing, when clarity is always just one prompt away? But here's what the Stoics understood that we're forgetting. Wisdom isn't information, it's transformation. It's the scar tissue of experience. It's what remains after you've wrestled with a truth in the middle of the night, after you've failed to live up to a principle and had to rebuild yourself, after you've been broken by life and put yourself back together using philosophy as the blueprint. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." You cannot embody something you've outsourced. You cannot integrate what you've never genuinely struggled to understand. The AI can give you the answer, but it cannot give you the process. And the process is where the transformation happens. Think about the last time you truly changed. Not when you learned a new fact, but when you became a different person. It wasn't instant, was it? It wasn't clean. It required confusion, failure, doubt, repetition, and finally, after painful iteration, a kind of hard-won clarity that rewired something fundamental in how you see the world. That's wisdom. That's what the Stoics were after. And that's exactly what's being short-circuited when we treat AI as an oracle rather than a tool. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." But what happens when there are no impediments anymore? When every question has an instant answer, every problem has an algorithmic solution, every confusion has a chatbot ready to resolve it? You don't get wisdom. You get dependency. You get a generation of people who can access everything and integrate nothing, who know all the answers but have never asked themselves the questions that matter. This is the second redefinition. In the age of AI, the Stoic practice of learning must become the practice of selective ignorance. Not ignorance as in stupidity, but as in sacred boundaries. The wisdom to know what not to optimize, what not to offload, what struggles are actually the curriculum. Cleanthus, the second head of the Stoic school, was so poor he worked as a water carrier at night to fund his philosophy studies during the day. He could have quit. He could have found an easier path. But he understood something we've forgotten. The difficulty was the point. The effort was the education. So here's your practice, your rebellion against the tyranny of infinite information. Choose one text, one Stoic text, and read it slowly. Not skim it, not get the AI summary, not watch the explainer video. Read it with friction, with confusion, with the discomfort of not immediately understanding. Let it sit in your mind like a stone in your shoe. Return to it, argue with it, live it badly, and then try again. This is how wisdom is forged, in the resistance, in the refusal to take the shortcut, because the shortcut might save you time, but it will cost you transformation. And in a world where AI can give you every answer except the one that changes who you are, the most radical act of Stoicism isn't seeking knowledge, it's protecting the sacred struggle of becoming wise.
There's a moment in Marcus Aurelius's Meditations that feels almost unbearably intimate. He writes to himself, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." It's not cynicism, it's preparation. It's him reminding himself who he is before the world tells him who to be. Every morning, Marcus performed this ritual, defining his character independent of external feedback, anchoring his identity in principles rather than perceptions. But close your eyes and imagine this. What if Marcus woke up and before he could think a single thought, an algorithm told him
who he was? What if his mirror wasn't made of bronze, but of data, analyzing his sleep patterns, his heart rate variability, his scrolling behavior from the night before, and generating a personality profile more accurate than any self-reflection he could produce? What if an AI said, based on your patterns, you're 73% likely to be irritable today. Here are 3 strategies optimized for your neurotype. Would that be help? Or would it be the end of self-knowledge as the Stoics understood it? This is the third existential shift of the AI age, and it cuts deeper than control or knowledge. It strikes at the very core of identity itself. The Stoics believed in something radical, that you could know yourself through introspection, that you could define your character through examined choices, that the unexamined life wasn't worth living because examination was how you became someone worth being. Socrates said, "Know thyself." Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." The assumption was always that the self was something you discovered within, cultivated through attention, and protected from the distorting mirrors of society. But AI has shattered that assumption, because now the machine knows you better than you know yourself, and it's rebuilding your sense of identity from the outside in. Spotify doesn't just play music you like, it tells you who you are. You're a chill vibes person. Netflix doesn't just recommend shows, it creates categories that become self-fulfilling identities. Because you watched this, you're a true crime obsessive. Instagram doesn't just show you content, it algorithmically reinforces a curated version of yourself that you start believing is real. Every click, every pause, every micro interaction feeds a model that predicts you, and in predicting you, it shapes you. Psychologists call this algorithmic identity formation, and the research is chilling. A study from Cambridge Analytica, yes, that Cambridge Analytica, showed that AI models could predict personality traits more accurately from Facebook likes than human psychologists could from face-to-face interviews. Another study from Stanford found that people's self-perception shifted to align with algorithmic feedback. When an AI told them they were extroverted, based on data, they began behaving more extroverted, even if they'd always identified as introverts. The mirror doesn't just reflect anymore, it creates. And here's where it becomes your story. You felt this, haven't you? That strange sense that you're not sure what you actually like versus what the algorithm has trained you to like. That playlist you listen to every morning, did you choose it or did it choose you? That opinion you hold so strongly, did you arrive at it through reasoning or did you scroll past 17 posts affirming it until it felt like truth? The Stoics warned against letting external validation define you. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Marcus wrote, it never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. They were fighting against the crowd, against social pressure, against the human tendency to outsource identity to consensus. But they were fighting humans, slow, imperfect, limited humans. You're fighting something that processes millions of data points per second, that knows your vulnerabilities with machine precision, that has been engineered by the most sophisticated behavioral psychologists in human history to keep you engaged, predicted, and profitable. The algorithms aren't evil, they're just optimizing. But what they're optimizing for isn't your flourishing, it's your predictability. Because predictable people click more, buy more, stay more. And every time you let the algorithm tell you who you are, you become a little less surprising to it and to yourself. Seneca wrote, "No person has the power to have everything they want, but it is in their power not to want what they don't have." But what happens when AI learns to manufacture want? When it can micro-target your insecurities and generate desire so precisely calibrated that you can't tell whether you genuinely want something or whether you've been architecturally persuaded? This is the third redefinition. Stoic self-knowledge must evolve from introspection to what we might call adversarial self-examination. You can no longer just look inward and assume what you find is authentically yours. You must ask, which of these thoughts are mine? Which have been planted? Which patterns in my behavior are genuine expressions of character, and which are algorithmic grooves I've been trained into? The practice becomes archaeological, digging through layers of influence, sorting the signal from the noise, reclaiming your identity from systems designed to colonize it. The Stoics exercised to remember who they were. You must exercise to discover who you are underneath what the algorithm says you are. This means radical practices, digital fasts, not as productivity hacks, but as identity reclamation. Choosing friction over convenience, the deliberately inefficient path, because efficiency optimizes you into predictability. Doing things the algorithm would never recommend, choosing the movie it doesn't suggest, reading the book outside your personalized preferences, befriending the person who doesn't fit your pattern. Because the most stoic thing you can do in an age of algorithmic determinism is become unpredictable. Not chaotic, but sovereign. Not random, but free. The Stoics said virtue was the only good, but virtue requires agency, and agency requires knowing which choices are actually yours. In the age of AI, the most revolutionary question isn't, "What should I do?" It's, "Who am I when no one and nothing is watching?"
Picture Epictetus in his small room, a freed slave with a crippled leg sitting in silence. No meditation app counting his breaths, no AI wellness coach monitoring his cortisol levels, no biometric feedback loop telling him he's achieved optimal calm. Just him, his thoughts, and the deliberate, painstaking work of training his mind to meet suffering without flinching. He would repeat to himself, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them." And then he would practice. Someone insults him, he examines his reaction. Pain flares in his damaged leg, he observes without complaint. A student disappoints him, he investigates his expectations. This was the core technology of Stoicism, the ability to create your own peace through disciplined thought, to be the author of your own tranquility regardless of circumstance. It was hard. It took years. Most people failed at it more than they succeeded. But the ones who mastered it, they became unshakable. Now answer this. When was the last time you sat with your own anxiety without reaching for your phone? When did you last feel anger rising and chose to examine it rather than distract yourself with a video, a game, a scroll, a search for content that would regulate your nervous system for you? The fourth crisis of the AI age is this. We are losing the ability to do our own emotional labor. And we're losing it precisely because AI is getting so good at doing it for us. There are apps now that detect your stress levels through your voice and play personalized soundscapes to calm you.
Wearables that monitor your heart rate variability and send you breathing reminders before you even consciously register anxiety. AI therapy chatbots available 24 hours a day, trained on millions of therapy sessions, ready to offer cognitive reframing techniques the moment you feel distressed. And the seduction is obvious. Why suffer when relief is instant? Why do the painful work of self-regulation when an algorithm can regulate you more efficiently? But here's what we're not asking. What happens to your capacity for resilience when you never have to build it yourself? What happens to your inner citadel when you outsource its construction to external systems? The Stoics understood something profound about human psychology that modern neuroscience is only now confirming. Emotional regulation is a skill built through repeated practice in conditions of difficulty. Every time Marcus Aurelius chose not to react in anger, he was literally rewiring his neural pathways. Every time Seneca sat with grief without numbing it, he was expanding his capacity to hold difficult emotions. The struggle was the strengthening. The discomfort was the curriculum. But AI-assisted emotional regulation short-circuits this entire process. It's like using a calculator for every math problem. You might get the right answer, but you never develop mathematical intuition. You might achieve temporary calm, but you never build the deep structural resilience that comes from repeatedly facing your inner turmoil and choosing wisdom over reaction. There's a study from the University of California that tracked people using AI mental health apps versus traditional meditation practices. The AI users reported faster reduction in acute anxiety symptoms, but 6 months later, when the app was removed, their baseline anxiety was higher than before they started. The control group, practicing unassisted meditation, showed slower initial progress but lasting increases in emotional regulation capacity. The AI gave them the fish. The practice taught them to fish. And we're seeing this play out on a civilization-wide scale. Rates of anxiety and depression are skyrocketing, even as access to mental health tools has never been more abundant. Why? Because we've confused symptom management with actual transformation. We've mistaken feeling better with becoming better. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." But we've built a world designed to eliminate friction, to smooth every rough edge, to offer instant relief from every uncomfortable feeling. And in doing so, we've eliminated the very conditions necessary for developing a stoic character. Think about your own life. How many times this week did you feel the first stirrings of discomfort, boredom, loneliness, anxiety, existential unease, and immediately reached for a digital pacifier? The phone, the playlist, the notification, the dopamine hit carefully engineered to recalibrate your nervous system without you having to do any of the work. You're not weak for doing this. The entire economic infrastructure of the digital age depends on you doing this. Every major tech company has a financial incentive to keep you dependent on their emotional regulation services, because the moment you learn to generate your own peace, you stop needing their products. This is perhaps the most dangerous redefinition of all, because it's the most invisible. You don't notice your capacity for inner work atrophying until you really need it, until you face a crisis that no app can solve, a grief that no algorithm can optimize away, a dark night of the soul that requires you to sit in the fire and be transformed by it. And if you've spent years outsourcing that capacity, you'll find yourself completely unprepared. The fourth redefinition is this: Stoic tranquility must shift from achievement to practice, from destination to discipline. It's not about reaching a permanent state of calm. The Stoics never promised that. It's about developing the musculature to repeatedly return to wisdom under pressure. And that musculature only develops through resistance training. This means making choices that feel inefficient, even counterproductive by optimization standards. It means sitting with anxiety for 5 minutes before reaching for the calming app. It means feeling anger fully, examining it, learning its texture and temperature before using a technique to discharge it. It means choosing the harder path of self-generated peace over the easier path of algorithmic assistance. Not always, but often enough that you never lose the skill. Marcus Aurelius had a practice he called the view from above, imagining himself from a vast distance, seeing his problems as small and temporary against the backdrop of eternity. He didn't need an app for perspective. He built the capacity to shift his own consciousness through will and practice. You can still do this, but you have to choose it. You have to defend it against the 1,000 seductive offers to let someone or something else carry the weight of your inner life. Because here's the truth the Stoics knew and we're forgetting. Peace that's given to you is fragile. Peace you build yourself is fortress. And in an age where every system is designed to make you dependent, the most radical act of Stoicism is becoming the source of your own strength.
There's a passage in Seneca's letters that haunts me differently now than it did before. He tells Lucilius, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future, not to amuse ourselves with either hopes or fears, but to rest satisfied with what we have, which is abundantly sufficient." He was writing to a man paralyzed by ambition, chasing achievement after achievement, never satisfied, always grasping for the next accomplishment to prove his worth. Seneca's answer was radical. Your value isn't in what you achieve, it's in who you become. But what happens when achievement itself becomes obsolete? When the things you spent years mastering, writing, coding, analysis, design, strategy, can be done by an AI in seconds, often better than you could ever do them. This is the 5th existential earthquake of the AI age, and it's shaking the foundation of how humans have understood purpose for millennia. The Stoics built their philosophy around the concept of ergon, your essential work, the function that defines your nature. For Marcus Aurelius, it was ruling justly. For Epictetus, it was teaching wisdom. For Seneca, it was living philosophically and helping others do the same. They believed that human flourishing came from excelling at distinctly human capacities: reason, virtue, wisdom, justice, courage. But here's the brutal question we must face. What happens when artificial intelligence becomes more rational than humans? When it makes better decisions, analyzes more comprehensively, solves problems more efficiently, and does it all without ego, without bias, without fatigue? What is your ergon when the machine is better at almost everything you once considered your essential work? I know a writer, let's call him David, who spent 15 years crafting his style, finding his voice, learning the architecture of sentences and the music of language. Last month, he fed an AI 5 of his articles and watched it generate a new piece in his style, indistinguishable from his own work, in 40 seconds. He sat there staring at the screen, and for the first time in his career, he asked himself, what's the point? It's not just writers, it's programmers watching AI write code faster and cleaner. It's analysts watching machine learning models find patterns they'd missed. It's strategists watching algorithms optimize decisions beyond human capability. It's artists watching generative AI produce beauty in seconds that would have taken them weeks. And the existential vertigo is overwhelming, because if your identity was built on being good at something, and that something can now be automated, what's left? The corporate answer is pivot to higher value work.
The Silicon Valley answer is become an AI supervisor. But neither addresses the deeper crisis. If all the things we used to pursue for mastery, meaning, and self-actualization can be done better by machines, what does it mean to be human? This is where shallow Stoicism fails catastrophically. The Instagram version that says, "Control what you can control," offers nothing here. The productivity hack interpretation that treats Stoicism as efficiency optimization is worse than useless. It's collaborating with the very forces creating the crisis. But the deep Stoics, they saw this coming. Not AI specifically, but the fundamental truth that accomplishment alone is a house built on sand. Epictetus said something that seemed almost absurd to ancient ears and sounds even stranger to modern ones. No great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. He's not talking about the fig, he's talking about you. The Stoics understood that the value of human life isn't in the output, it's in the process of becoming. The sculptor isn't valuable because the statue is beautiful. The sculptor is transformed by the act of sculpting. The writer doesn't matter because the words are perfect. The writer becomes wise through the struggle to make them so. The coder isn't defined by the elegance of the algorithm. The coder develops discipline, patience, problem-solving capacity through years of practice. This is the fifth redefinition, and it's the most uncomfortable. In the age of AI, Stoic purpose must shift from achievement to character, from product to process, from external validation to internal transformation. Your ergon, your essential work, isn't what you produce, it's who you become in the production. And no AI can do that for you. Think about it this way. Marcus Aurelius could have hired scribes to write his meditations more elegantly. He was emperor. He had access to the greatest minds in Rome. But he wrote them himself, often badly, repetitively, because the writing wasn't for an audience. It was the practice of shaping his own soul. The artifact didn't matter. The act of creation was the transformation. This is what we must reclaim. The AI can write your email, but it cannot experience the discipline of choosing your words carefully. It can generate your code, but it cannot develop the patience and precision you build through debugging. It can produce the output, but it cannot give you the internal transformation that comes from doing difficult things slowly, imperfectly, humanly. Cleanthes, who carried water at night to fund his philosophy studies, could have begged for money. It would have been faster, easier, but he chose the labor because the labor was the lesson. The inefficiency was the curriculum. And this is your answer to the crisis of meaning. You must fall in love with inefficiency again, not as laziness, but as humanity. You must choose to do things the hard way, the slow way, the human way, not because the output is better, but because the process makes you better. Learn to play an instrument even though AI can compose perfect music. Write by hand even though voice to text is faster. Cook food even though delivery is easier. Build something with your hands even though machines can manufacture it cheaper. Garden, craft, create, not for the result, but for the resistance. Because every time you choose the human path over the algorithmic shortcut, you're making a profound Stoic assertion. I am not valuable because of what I produce. I am valuable because I am becoming someone worth being. Seneca wrote to Lucilius, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." Not accomplish at once, not achieve at once, live, be, become. This is what the machines cannot take from you. Your capacity to experience the full weight and texture of existence, your ability to choose virtue over efficiency, your decision to become wise even when wisdom is slower, messier, less productive than algorithmic intelligence. The crisis isn't that AI can do what you do. The crisis is that you believed your worth was in the doing rather than in the being. And now, in the most painful and necessary way, the age of AI is forcing you to rediscover what the Stoics always knew. You are not your accomplishments, you are your character. And character is built in the struggling, not in the succeeding.
So here we stand, at the edge of a transformation the ancient Stoics could never have imagined, but somehow already understood. 5 revelations that have dismantled everything we thought we knew about control, knowledge, identity, peace, and purpose. And now, in this final moment, we must face the ultimate question: what is Stoicism for the age of AI? Not what was it, not what should it be, but what must it become if it's going to help you remain human, remain free, remain yourself in a world designed to optimize you into oblivion? The answer is both simpler and more radical than anything the productivity gurus or the algorithm apologists will tell you. Stoicism in the age of AI is the philosophy of sacred resistance. Not resistance as rejection, not resistance as nostalgia for a past that never quite existed, but resistance as the deliberate, conscious choice to remain the author of your own experience when everything around you is trying to write your story for you. Listen to how this lands. Marcus Aurelius, on the night before battle, didn't pray for victory. He prayed for the strength to meet whatever came with dignity. Epictetus, offered his freedom, didn't celebrate escape from slavery. He recognized that his chains had always been internal, and freedom was a practice, not a destination. Seneca, facing execution by Nero, didn't rage against injustice. He chose how he would die, asserting agency in the only moment left to him. They all understood the same truth. You cannot control the tide, but you can decide how you meet it. You cannot change the systems, but you can refuse to let the systems change who you are. And in the age of AI, this is your sacred work. Not to fight the technology, not to pretend it doesn't exist, but to consciously, repeatedly, fiercely choose the practices that keep you sovereign. Here's what this actually looks like and why it matters more than any morning routine or optimization framework you've ever tried. The first practice, the spectrum of influence. Every morning, before you open your phone, before the algorithms begin their quiet infiltration of your attention, you ask, what degree of agency do I have today? Not what can I control, but where will I invest my limited sovereignty? You recognize that the dichotomy has collapsed, that influence and autonomy exist on a spectrum, and you choose consciously where to spend your power. You don't fight every battle. You don't resist every nudge, but you notice. You see the invisible hands shaping your choices, and in seeing them, you reclaim just enough freedom to remain yourself. This is the redefined Stoicism, not control, but conscious allocation of influence in a world of competing intelligences. The second practice, selective ignorance. In a world where you can know anything instantly, you choose what not to know. You protect the space of productive confusion, the fertile darkness of genuine not knowing, where wisdom actually grows. You read one text slowly instead of skimming 50. You sit with a question instead of searching for the answer. You defend the struggle, the inefficiency, the human pace of transformation against the algorithmic promise of instant clarity. Because you understand what Epictetus knew, the obstacle is the way, and when you remove all obstacles, you remove all ways. This is Stoicism reborn, not the accumulation of knowledge, but the cultivation of wisdom through deliberate friction. The third practice, adversarial self-examination. You no longer trust that your thoughts are purely your own. You become an archaeologist of your own mind, digging beneath the surface to ask, which of these desires are mine? Which have been manufactured? Which patterns in my behavior express my character? And which are grooves carved by systems designed to predict me? You do things the algorithm would never recommend. You become deliberately unpredictable, not random, but sovereign.
You reclaim your identity from the data models that think they know you better than you know yourself. This is the Stoic practice updated for surveillance capitalism. Not know thyself, but excavate thyself from beneath the algorithmic sediment. The fourth practice, the preservation of inner work. You feel anxiety rising, and instead of reaching for the app, the video, the scroll, the instant regulation, you sit with it for 5 minutes, maybe 10. You observe it the way Epictetus observed his pain, not as an enemy to be defeated, but as information to be understood. You let your nervous system remember how to regulate itself. You rebuild the capacity for self-generated peace because you understand that any tranquility given to you by an external system is a dependence, not a freedom. And the Stoics were never interested in comfortable slavery. They wanted uncomfortable freedom. This is resilience rebuilt from the ground up, not symptom management, but the development of unshakable inner strength through repeated practice under pressure. The fifth practice, falling in love with the process. You write the email yourself, even though AI could do it faster. You debug your own code, even though the assistant could fix it instantly. You cook your own food, build your own routines, make your own decisions, slowly, imperfectly, humanly. Not because the output is better, but because you are better for having done it. You understand that your worth isn't in what you produce, but in who you become through the act of production. And you choose becoming over efficiency, transformation over optimization, character over achievement. This is the ultimate Stoic answer to the crisis of meaning. You are not valuable because of your outputs. You are valuable because you are actively becoming someone worth being. These 5 practices aren't a system. They're a rebellion against the idea that faster is better, against the belief that efficiency is virtue, against the assumption that human value lies in accomplishment rather than character, against the slow, seductive colonization of your attention, your identity, your sovereignty by systems that want you predictable, manageable, profitable. This is Stoicism redefined for the age of AI, not as a philosophy of acceptance, but as a practice of resistance. Not withdrawal from technology, but conscious engagement with it. Not control over external events, but fierce protection of internal freedom. The Stoics always knew that the empire would try to break you, that circumstances would try to define you, that the crowd would try to tell you who to be. What they didn't know was that the empire would be algorithmic, the circumstances would be engineered, and the crowd would be replaced by machine learning models trained on billions of human interactions. But their answer remains the same, just sharpened for a new battlefield. You are the citadel. Not your accomplishments, not your productivity, not your optimized, predicted algorithmic self. You, the being that can notice the manipulation, question the pattern, choose differently. You, the being that can sit with difficulty and be transformed by it. You, the soul that can look at infinite convenience and choose sacred inefficiency. You, the human who can face the most sophisticated influence systems ever created and still say, I decide who I become. This is not easy. It was never easy. Marcus wrote his meditations in a tent, surrounded by war, exhausted by empire, and still had to remind himself daily not to lose his center. Epictetus taught these principles until his last breath because he knew the work was never finished. Seneca faced death practicing what he preached because the final exam is always whether you can maintain your philosophy when everything is taken away. And now it's your turn, not to achieve Stoicism, not to master it, but to practice it daily, imperfectly, persistently, in the most challenging context humans have ever faced. The age of AI will not destroy Stoicism, it will reveal whether we truly understand it. Because Stoicism was never about controlling the world. It was about remaining free when the world tried to control you. And if you can do that, if you can remain sovereign, authentic, and self-authored in an age of algorithmic determinism, then you'll have done something the ancient Stoics would recognize instantly. You'll have chosen wisdom over convenience, character over optimization, and freedom over every seductive form of slavery the future can offer. The machines will get smarter, the systems will get more persuasive, the algorithms will learn to predict you with terrifying accuracy, but they cannot take your capacity to notice, to choose, to become. That belongs to you. That has always belonged to you, and that, in the end, is what Stoicism has always been about, remembering that the only empire that truly matters is the one within, and no intelligence, artificial or otherwise, can rule there unless you surrender the throne.